Tansin umaga tamskap no. Miosin minetin mabaweti ako tayo. Pigskwata mga nicho. Tawi pinastat sa just a little bit, just saying that, we're bringing as we gather, trying to get our heads together and that we're be thankful that our traditional food is coming on.
Identified that we could perhaps influence cultural humility was through advancing the work of the traditional foods program. So really it was almost, there were multi-purposes, I think, in our initiative. Is not only did we want to advance our traditional foodways and get more traditional food items onto our menus in the Saskatchewan Health Authority, but we also wanted it to be more than just making a recipe and coming up with a food item. Is we really wanted to inspire the importance of our Indigenous cultures and really try to have staff embrace the bigger picture of it, that this is our call to action. And in nutrition and food services, we can contribute by making this a priority. But when you think about what's the one thing that I could do, that I could offer, that might just start to advance the yardstick a little bit, and what I can do is food. I can make a change in what we consider important as a department and how we want to move forward. It will do in the immediate is it will provide more traditional meals for our First Nations and Indigenous persons for when they're in hospital. But I hope it also acts as that springboard to show how important that is to us as a department, like that we really care about this, that people are enthusiastic and they want to learn and they care to learn. Like that in itself that's 90% right there.
Being able to put ourselves into that discomfort to allow us to grow, and just giving us that opportunity and feeling okay with that discomfort, and you just know it's part of growth. Everyone is interested, everyone feels supported. We know we won't get it right the first time, and it's okay if we don't get it right because we're on a journey. We're not supposed to get it right the first time. The changes I've noticed in the work group are they're quite interested. They've never had this opportunity before, but to give them this time, this training, showing this education and wanting to develop them has really opened their eyes to the possibilities of the work that they can do to support traditional and cultural foods.
And so more than ever, ensuring proper and adequate nutrition to see that growth and see them still have that energy and be able to be kids even when they're not feeling well is super important. Any of the individuals that I've spoken to about the project work and that I've shared the sample menu with so far and talked to has just expressed how excited they are about this and how important it is, and just that this has been really missing in our acute care hospital menus. So I think that just speaks volumes to how necessary it is.
Members of our working group, there's a variety of backgrounds, but definitely there's strong voices from First Nations and Metis community, and I think to start this work it has to come from people who are First Nations or Metis and chefs who have cooked traditional foods, to be the ones creating the menu items, and having First Nations and Metis patients and families trying the food because they're the best voices and the best people to make it successful, I think. Traditional foods, what I'd like to see is having foods that First Nations and Metis patients in hospital see on our menu, and they in a way feel welcomed in the healthcare institutions, or feel comforted by the foods that we're offering and supported, and also that there's delicious traditional foods on our menu that help our patients to ultimately eat better in hospital and do better in hospital, do better with their treatments or whatever they're in hospital for, and recover more quickly and get home to where.
I think it will be great for our First Nations people because that's their way of living and they enjoy traditional food because I always ask them, the hospital food is not enough, so they don't really like the.
Most people, they're put on a special diet anyway with diabetes or whatever, so traditional foods would be good.
They started some with the bannock and berries and the Three Sisters soup. And I thought that was so exciting, and a lot of the patients at the hospital really enjoyed it. So doing more of the traditional food would be very good for the patients.
As a health educator, we were asked to ask the patients what would they like to see, what kind of traditional foods they like to see on the menu. And being asked that question, most of them said, I don't know right away. But when we told them that there were the Three Sisters soup available, bannock and berries, they were really excited to have that in their menu. And then they would go, in a hospital, how would they make that? Who would make it? Who's going to be the cooks? Do they know how to cook? Who makes the bannock? Foods on the menu, I feel like they're finally being heard in what they want to eat instead of hospital food, being forced on them. So they have a choice now to choose if they want the regular food or the traditional foods. To ask elders for their advice because they're the ones that know.
Really good for our First Nations people, and we're just starting this, so it'll be very good as we move forward further, to be heard, something they've wanted for a long time.
There are also protocols, and our knowledge systems as First Nations and Métis people need to be respected. We need to go in with open hearts and minds and do our best to ensure that the work is done in a good way. What I'd like to see this work achieve is that we're providing the best care possible for Indigenous people. And when we speak about traditional foods, it's not just a dietary choice, right? It's not just ensuring that you're getting to eat what you're used to eating. It's so much more than that, right? And this is where you get into the fundamental teachings of Indigenous knowledge systems, right? Our ways of knowing, our identity. And by being able to access traditional meals within our healthcare system is absolutely paramount, I think, in going forward for the health and the well-being, because it goes into physical, it goes into emotional, it goes into mental, right? Make for a better person, a healthier person. So just simply by, as someone would think, simply ingesting a traditional meal, it's not only giving that person sustenance, but it's also improving their mental health. It's nostalgia. It invokes those memories. And with somebody who is in their elderly years and is in a long-term care home, as an example, you're away from your community. You're surrounded by individuals who are not of your identity, not of your culture, not of your belief system. They may show empathy, they may show sympathy, but that's as far as it can go. So a person, one of our old people in a long-term care facility for 3 months without having access to traditional foods, that's going to take a toll on their mental health. They're cut off from their life systems. And by being able to have access to those traditional foods, it brings them back to who they are.
Before colonization, we had a healthy societies over here in Turtle Island. we had really healthy. There was no big bellies, you know, from eating processed foods, right? And offering stimao, to that animal or that plant, and acknowledging the spirit and the medicine within, the gift that they're giving us. That's really important in our way. Processed foods disconnect us, and that's a violation, you know? We need to bring that back, and I mean, it's going to take time for results to be noticed, but we need to maintain that relationship with the natural world. That is so critical, because otherwise we're lost if we don't do that.
So it's in the way that our food is prepared, and it doesn't only nourish you, it feeds your spirit. It helps you to gain strength, and it gives you hope, and you want to go home, you want to get better. I think the best way to put it would be for our people to feel, not that they belong here, but they are recognized. You know, this is, keep it simple, keep it tasty. Let's feed, like, not only Indigenous people, but let's feed our patients so that they can be well and they can nourish themselves, not only their bodies, but their spirits, and be wanting to get better and to look forward to their meals. I think it's important because there are people, not only with our languages, but with generational barriers. And so those of us that are comfortable or to know how to utilize different systems and processes to give voice, to be that voice, to be a strength, because when our people are sick, they don't feel good. And so they're not strong, but they do know and they do realize that something is wrong, or even it could be positive. You know, there are good things that happen in hospitals. It's not all negative, but for that to be showcased, and when there are good things, for that to be celebrated. And I think that with it being integrated into the food services within hospitals, it'll bring, you know, that recognition, you know, and that it's huge.
All you cooks, preparers, I acknowledge you in my prayers and ceremonies and here today. So, and in Eskimo, I thank you. I'm very grateful for you, for all of you.